Welcome back to Explainer. Today, we delve into a topic that's both chilling and crucial: nuclear war. It's the ultimate nightmare, a war that cannot be won and would have devastating consequences for the entire planet. Join us as we explore the reality of nuclear war, its history, its effects, and what we can do to prevent it. A nuclear war is a war fought with nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons are the most destructive weapons ever created. They can release millions of times more energy than conventional explosives, and they can cause widespread death and destruction. The effects of nuclear war would be catastrophic. The immediate effects would be the blast wave, the thermal pulse, and the radiation. The blast wave would cause widespread destruction, and the thermal pulse would start fires that could burn for days or even weeks. The radiation would cause radiation poisoning, cancer, and other health problems. The long-term effects of nuclear war would be even more devastating. The nuclear fallout would contaminate the environment for decades, and the climate change caused by nuclear war could make the planet uninhabitable. Food shortages and the collapse of civilization would likely follow. Nuclear war is preventable, but it will require cooperation from all countries. We need to work together to reduce nuclear arsenals, prevent the spread of nuclear weapons, and resolve conflicts peacefully. The history of nuclear war is a dark one. It all began in the early 1940s, when scientists in the United States and Germany were racing to develop the first nuclear weapon. The United States won the race, and in 1945, it dropped atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, killing hundreds of thousands of people and ending World War II. After the war, the United States and the Soviet Union entered into a period of intense rivalry known as the Cold War. Both countries stockpiled nuclear weapons, and the world lived in constant fear of a nuclear war. There were several close calls during the Cold War, most notably the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. Today, the Cold War is over, but the threat of nuclear war remains. 9 countries now possess nuclear weapons, and several more are trying to develop them. The risk of a nuclear war is low, but it is not zero. Here are some of the close calls that we have had with nuclear war in the past. The Cuban Missile Crisis. In 1962, the United States and the Soviet Union came to the brink of nuclear war over the deployment of Soviet nuclear missiles in Cuba. The crisis was resolved peacefully, but it was a sobering reminder of the dangers of nuclear war. The Berlin Crisis. In 1961, the Soviet Union built a wall dividing East and West Berlin. The United States responded by sending troops to Berlin, and the two superpowers engaged in a tense standoff. The crisis was eventually resolved, but it raised the risk of nuclear war between the two countries. In 1973, Egypt and Syria launched a surprise attack on Israel. The United States and the Soviet Union supported opposite sides in the conflict, and the war raised the risk of a superpower confrontation. And finally, the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union engaged in a variety of activities that increased the risk of nuclear war, such as nuclear arms races and military exercises. These are just a few examples of the close calls that we have had with nuclear war in the past. It is important to remember these close calls and to work to prevent nuclear war from ever happening. There are 2 main types of nuclear weapons: fission bombs and fusion bombs. Fission bombs work by splitting atoms of uranium or plutonium, releasing a tremendous amount of energy. Fission bombs are the type of nuclear bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki during World War II. On the other end of the spectrum, we have fusion bombs, also known as thermonuclear weapons, work by fusing atoms of hydrogen together. Fusion bombs are much more powerful than fission bombs, and they can produce explosions that are equivalent to thousands of fission bombs. In addition to fission and fusion bombs, there are also neutron bombs. Neutron bombs are designed to release a large amount of neutrons, which can kill people and damage electronics. Neutron bombs are less powerful than fission and fusion bombs, but they are more effective at killing people. Here are some of the most common types of nuclear weapons. Atomic bombs. Atomic bombs are the simplest type of nuclear weapon. They use fission to release a large amount of energy. Hydrogen bombs. Hydrogen bombs are fusion bombs that use deuterium and tritium to create a powerful explosion. Neutron bombs. Neutron bombs are designed to release a large amount of neutrons which can kill people and damage electronics. Cruise missiles. Cruise missiles are long-range missiles that can carry nuclear warheads. Intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs. ICBMs are long-range missiles that can launch nuclear warheads at targets anywhere in the world. These are just a few of the different types of nuclear weapons that exist. Nuclear weapons are extremely dangerous, and they pose a serious threat to humanity. Nuclear strategy is the use of nuclear weapons to achieve political or military objectives. There are two main types of nuclear strategy: deterrence and first strike. Deterrence is the use of nuclear weapons to prevent an enemy from attacking. Deterrence is based on the idea that neither side will use nuclear weapons because they know that doing so would lead to mutually assured destruction, MAD. Conversely, a first strike is a preemptive attack in which one country uses nuclear weapons to disarm its enemy and prevent it from responding. A first strike would be a devastating attack, and it is unlikely that any country would be able to survive it. Most countries today employ a strategy of deterrence. However, some countries, such as North Korea, have threatened to use nuclear weapons in a first strike. It is important to note that nuclear strategy is a complex and controversial topic. There is no easy answer to the question of how to deter nuclear war without increasing the risk of it happening. Here are some of the long-term effects of nuclear war on the environment. Nuclear war would release a massive amount of soot and dust into the atmosphere, which would block out sunlight and cause global cooling. This could lead to a new ice age, which would have devastating consequences for agriculture and human life. Nuclear war would also release a large amount of chlorine and bromine into the atmosphere, which would deplete the ozone layer. The ozone layer protects us from harmful ultraviolet radiation, so its depletion would lead to an increase in skin cancer, cataracts, and other health problems. Nuclear war would also produce a large amount of acid rain, which would damage forests, crops, and lakes. The environmental effects of nuclear war would make it difficult to grow food. This would lead to widespread food shortages and famine. The environmental effects of nuclear war would likely lead to the collapse of civilization. This would make it difficult for humans to survive and reproduce. The environmental effects of nuclear war would be catastrophic. It is important to remember these effects and to work to prevent nuclear war from ever happening. The social effects of nuclear war would be devastating. The immediate effects would include the loss of life, the destruction of infrastructure, and the displacement of millions of people. The long-term effects would include social unrest, economic collapse, and the loss of culture. Here are some of the social effects of nuclear war. The loss of life and the destruction of infrastructure would lead to widespread social unrest. People would compete for scarce resources, and there would be an increase in crime and violence. The destruction of infrastructure and the loss of skilled workers would lead to the collapse of the economy. This would make it difficult for people to meet their basic needs, and it would lead to widespread poverty and hunger. Nuclear war would destroy cultural institutions, such as libraries, museums, and universities. It would also lead to the loss of cultural traditions and languages. The social effects of nuclear war would be catastrophic. It is important to remember these effects and to work to prevent nuclear war from ever happening. Here are some of the ways that we can prevent nuclear war. We need to reduce nuclear arsenals and eventually eliminate nuclear weapons altogether. This can be done through bilateral and multilateral treaties, such as the New Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, New START. Also, to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons to new countries. This can be done through treaties, such as the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, NPT, and through export controls. We need to use diplomacy to resolve conflicts peacefully. This can be done through negotiations, mediation, and other forms of conflict resolution. And finally, we need to educate the public about the dangers of nuclear war and the importance of peace. This can be done through schools, universities, and civil society organizations. Preventing nuclear war is a complex challenge that demands our attention. We can work towards disarmament, non-proliferation, diplomatic resolutions, and widespread education to highlight the dangers and importance of peace. And that's the wrap. Nuclear war remains the ultimate threat to humanity. Its catastrophic consequences are undeniable, But by fostering global cooperation and understanding, we can collectively strive to prevent this nightmare from ever becoming a stark reality. Thank you for joining us today. If you found this information valuable, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more enlightening content. Let's stay informed and work towards a safer, more peaceful world. Until next time, stay informed and stay safe.